पहले ही on there. Good morning, everyone. Today we will resume with the session of Indian Express, and there are significant number of news today. So starting with the first news, Lakshman Rekha there, but we need to examine demonetization. Yeah, these are the broader news. Lakshman Rekha in GS when we can talk about the education loan means the first news, and further there is this news sites PM-Devine, multi-state cooperatives, Indian students, red corner notice, language panel. There's this quote and the essay topic, and there is no news per se in ethics paper today, but largely we will start with the news. Some of the news which I haven't mentioned is on the very first page, education loan. So the thing that we want to understand in this, that the ceiling, the collateral has been raised to 10 lakh rupees, because for more than 10 lakhs bank were not giving the loans. So in this case the government has decided that till 10 lakh it will be covered under that. If something credit guarantees and if something happens, the government will pay up the issues, so that more and more number loan can be disbursed for the higher education or educational purposes. So this was the first news. Now here the other important news, which is very important, particularly with the power of the court in case of judicial reviews, is Lakshman Rekha there, because it is completely executive decisions and there was no significant judgment or with the purview on this case. But the thing is that Supreme Court, after a gap of 5 years, has said that they can review the overall demonetization exercise, because somehow it relates to the law of proportionality, which we will subsequently discuss. But before going into that, I believe that we are aware with the overall situation of demonetization. See, basically under consent from RBI, though RBI objected on some part of the overall process and its short term and long term benefit of the demonetization exercise, largely 86% of the notes were withdrawn. That is the thing, that 86% of the notes were withdrawn. Now that is an important, because it somehow relates with the Article 300, which is the right to property. Now what we know about the law of proportionality, that if some executive decisions has to be made and what are the overall consequences of the decision is an important thing. So proportionality is a ground for judicial review in India. The doctrine of proportionality was adopted by the Supreme Court in the case of Om Kumar versus Union of India. Proportionality means that administrative action should not be more drastic than it ought to be for obtaining the desired result. In case Putri Swami judgment versus Union of India, the court held that any restriction placed on the right must conform to a doctrine of proportionality. This requires a few tests. That state action must have a legislative mandate. 2, the action must show that the objective of law is founded on the legitimate government aim. 3, it must be proportionate, that such state action, both in nature and extent, must be necessary for a democratic society. Further, such action must have no alternative in less intrusive measure to achieve the same objective. So the principle of proportionality calls for striking down the laws that are excessively harsh or disproportionate. Now the issue is that the contention of the opposing side was that, see, this has been done once, so there are chances that it can be done another time. So to resolve this, a mandate by the Supreme Court or the proportionality is needed. More importantly, this law tells that what was the aim of such policy and how much advantage it has served. or what was the disadvantage? Here lies the Lakshmana Rekha, because it is not under the mandate, but again, as per the proportionality, this has to be tested. This is why the Supreme Court said that Lakshman Rekha is there, but we need to examine demonetization. That demonetization can come under the purview of judicial review. Now, it is in developing news, and probably maybe after some hearing, it can be clear. But as of now, this is the ground on which the Supreme Court is venturing into the judicial review of demonetization. So, this is the first news. The second news in this case, in the paper 2, PM-Devine. So, PM-Devine is developmental initiative for Northeast region. It will target the creation of infrastructure, support industries, social development project, and create livelihood of activities for the youth and women with the focus of the job creation. So, you have to remember it. This project will include basic infrastructure in all primary healthcare center and the government school. A central sector schemes with 100% central funding, PM-Devine will be implemented by the Ministry of Development Northeast Region through the Northeast State Council or central ministries and agencies. What is to be analyzed here is that if we consider the overall status of the development in North State, it is lacking on many dimensions, and the average is far worse than the rest of the India. So, in that context, the PM-Devine will try to build on the infrastructure, social as well as physical infrastructure, so that the low-hanging fruits of the Northeast region can be accentuated in order to for the holistic development of Northeast region. So, this was about the PM, and it is important in two contexts, that creating infrastructure, that how it will lead to development of India, because you know that we have many regional disparities if we consider the developmental prospects and the FDI inflow. So, probably the Northeast region is the region where only 0.2% of the overall 0.2% of the FDI flows in, because there is lack of infrastructure. And if we consider the FDI inflows, then you see that the developed state, particularly Goa, Karnataka, Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, Delhi, these states attract a lot of FDI, but this is not true for Northeast and particularly for eastern states. So, for developing northeastern states, PM-Devine initiative can help as in bridging the gap of the infrastructures. Now, second news. Government clears bill to amend multi-state cooperative laws. See, again, it is bill and it will be presented in the parliamentary in winter session. So, there are provisions, there were issues because of which this bill was amended, and it incorporate the provision of 97th Constitutional Amendment Act, and it will improve governance, reform electoral processes, strengthen monitoring mechanism, improve composition of the board, enhance transparency and accountability, improve ease of doing business, increase financial discipline, and enable of funds in multi-state cooperatives. These were the line of the source. So, provision for setting up a cooperative election authority, cooperative information officer, cooperative ombudsman, etc. have been proposed in order to make governance of multi-state cooperative society more democratic, transparent and accountable. The election authority will ensure that elections are held in a fair, free and timely manner. So, proposed will have a provision to debar offenders from 3 years, and that will bring more electoral discipline. The cooperative ombudsman will set up a mechanism for redress of the member grievance in a structured fashion. The bill proposed to appoint a cooperative information officers who will enhance transparency by providing member timely access to informations, and to promote equity and to facilitate inclusiveness, provision relating to the representation of women and scheduled caste tribes members on the board in multi-state cooperative societies have been included. To promote professional management, provisions have been made to bring in co-opted directors with experience in the field of banking, management, cooperative management and finance, or having specialization in another field relating to the activities of the multi-state cooperative society. So this was about the bill, but the problem that we have been witnessing in case of cooperative, this is the lack of elections, one, or not free and fair elections, two, they don't have the required skill set. When we compare the overall things, probably the some members who are not related with the cooperative and framing, so they are not involved in the overall functioning of the cooperative, which is making a cooperative bit out of focus or out of context as per the current demand of the market. Further, largely the nature of the cooperative and the interaction and the such other issues are within the state. So it will try to make it a significant cooperative across India. So this was the larger purpose of the bill. Now, the other news, yes, Indian students abroad most likely to stay. So this is based on a fact that is, it was said by International Migration Outlook 2022, which is a report by the OECD. The issue is that 12% of the total migrants are Chinese, 10% are Indians. So the Indian students generally, when go to the other OECD countries, they try to extend their visas and try to work on the work permit for obvious reasons, because lifestyle is better and research grants are better out there. And this is highest in case of Indian student. The difference between Indian and Chinese student is that the Chinese students generally return to their own country. So this whole phenomena is brain drain as per the Indian narrative. In case of China, it is brain gain, because those people who got the experience in OECD countries, particularly in the research and development, are not coming or coming back to the China, and they are contributing in the development of the Chinese. So this is highest in case of Indian for obvious reasons, we know it. Now the issue is that this has been a big issue. The government of India is always considerate about the brain drain, and they enacted some scopes for the brain gain, and these are the policies which is used for the brain gain. These policies are Prime Minister Research Fellows scheme in improving the quality of research by attracting the best talent across the countries, the visiting advanced joint research virtual faculty schemes with the aim of promoting a globally competitive environment for cutting edge research and the development of new technologies in the country. 3. The Ramanujam Fellowship Innovation in Science Pursuit for Inspired Research Program. 4th, Ramalingam Swami Fellowship for providing a platform for the scientists who are willing to return and work in India. Vaishvik Bharatiya Vaigyanik Vaibhav Summit. Under this, numerous overseas Indian origin academicians and Indian participated to form ideas in innovative solution to several challenges. Further, there are schemes for transformational and advanced research in science, schemes for promotion of academic and research collaboration, and impactful policy research in social sciences. So these are the facts which are related with the, it can be related with the overall using the demographic dividend and such other issues. But you see that meanwhile, while talking about the students, there is an important part which is related with the paper one, which is empty heart disease. And empty heart disease generally says that particularly it has been witnessed in the Chinese student, because there is so much competitiveness. So when they go to the other universities, they always feel that something is missing. Okay, and because their ideas and such other things were related with their society and their values were encompassed in that or inculcated in that. So this creates a division. In case of India, it is largely Western motivation that we will go to US or Canada and we will settle it out there. So this was the part about the in case of Indian, but in case of Chinese, it is the the feeling, the family that propagated something in their own values, and they found everything is missing. So they this creates a kind of conditions in which people are not that interested in studies, and the emphasis is upon returning in case of returning to their native countries. So this is something called empty heart disease. And as far as the brain gain is considered, even after this, the efficacy of such program in attracting the scientists has not been that efficient, because we know that how much is the investment on education and what are the limited opportunities that are available. In case of China, the limited or the manufacturing sector, and particularly the R&D cut design, is very high. See, for example, if we say that US publishes 4,900 research papers per year, in case of China it is nearly 4,400. It is catching up with the United States. But in case of India, the quality of the research papers are not that good too. And the thing is that we are not presenting papers on development, just we are rephrasing it. So the overall aspect of research, and it is in the terms of data, it is 1,600 annually. So these are the issues which is creating the conditions of the brain drain. Now coming back to the front page again, which is under cheetah deal, sought India's support for lifting of ivory ban. Namibia, it was said by the Namibia, but the thing is that we have to understand it in bit detail, that what is sides and what is the impact on the overall ivory ban. So if we go by this logic, see, these are the appendix 1. It lists the species that are the most endangered among the CITES listed animals and the plants. Now they are threatened with extinctions, and CITES prohibit international trade in specimens of these copies except when the purpose of import is not commercial, for instance scientific research. In this exceptional cases, trade may took place. It is authorized by the granting of both an import permit and export permit. So this was the case with the cheetah, and it was not for the commercial purpose, rather it was the different location. But what Namibia is saying right now is that probably India will support them in lifting the ban on ivory trade. So what is the issue here? You see that the population of elephant was declining in significant numbers during 1989. So India, as a founding member, and probably India highlighted this, and India was in this case banned the ivory trade, because for the ivory and its use at different purposes in medicine, jewelry, and showpieces, elephants were killed. So in 1989, the ivory trade was banned, and the African population of elephant were put under the CITES Appendix 1. So the population of Namibia, Botswana, and Zimbabwe were transferred to Appendix 2 in 1997, and the South Africa in 2002. So means if we say that if there is an international collaboration on such issues, then the advantage can be there. It is as shown by this part that CITES and the ban on trading increase the population of the elephant from Appendix 1 to Appendix 2. In this case, Appendix 2 is that it lists species which are not necessarily now threatened with the extinction, but they may become so unless trade is closely controlled. International trade in specimen of Appendix 2 species may be authorized by the granting for an export permit or re-export certificate. No import permit is necessary. So right now they are in Appendix 2, and this ban was lifted 2 times. First was in 2008 and second was in 2012 for limited time only. When the bans were lifted, The result was that in a single year, in 2012 alone, the number of the elephant decreased, or around 1200 elephants were killed in a single year. So you see that this is what Namibia is saying. Their contention is that they have a lot of reserve of the ivory, which can be used to uplift the conditions of the sanctuaries worldwide, or elephant sanctuaries worldwide. So this is the issue, because of which it is being said that once this site appendix 2 is lifted, it will result in selling of these ivories stockpiles, and even India has a significant number of stockpile, which in market terms is nearly around $250 million. So even India can sell this, but as I gave you the example that in a single year, in 2012 alone, after lifting of this ban, a significant population of elephant was threatened, 1200. Further, there is no mechanism to prove that this is legit or exported exported product, or is it just killing by elephant and getting the ivory. So this is the distinction which can create or can be problematic. Yet India has support. It is being said that India will go by the Namibian part, and on that pretext only the cheetahs were transferred. So it raises an ethical issues of environmentalism. But our point is that in this case, key areas of the cooperation by the Namibia are highlighted in the last, that biodiversity conservation with a specific focus on restoration of cheetahs for their former range, and this part was one of the important part. So largely this is the issue where we face that should we focus on some animal to the exclusion of other. If India supports the bill in November 2000, which is slated for a vote in November 2023, and if this will be lifted, then what will be the overall impact on the elephants? So this is the issue, which is both ethical as well as environmental in nature. Now moving to the another prelims fact, red corner notice, as we have discussed it, who issues it? National Control Bureau. So a red corner notice or red notice alerts police forces across the world about fugitives who are wanted internationally. There are some conditions, information, these are the information, color, name, date of birth, nationality, and the issuer country will be where the crime has been committed. But you see that the problem is that it is only prescriptive in nature. The Interpol or it is not up to Interpol to arrest it. For example, wherever the fugitive will be, it is as per the laws of that country, or that they will arrest the person or not. For example, Mehul Chosky or Nirav Modi or Vijay Mallya are under red corner notice, but they are not arrested. So this is a loophole, because fugitive always look for the opportunities to run away from one country to other country. Now the last news, language panel. This is the language panel. It should not be confused with the house panel, because it is headed by the Home Ministry, and directly a minister is responsible for the development of the overall language. So the Committee of Parliament on Official Language was set up in 1976 under Section 4 of the Official Language Act 1963, and the Section 4 constitute a committee on official language on resolution that affects being moved in either house of the parliament with the previous sanctions of the president and passed by both the house. The committee is chaired by the Union Home Minister and has, in accordance with the provision of 1963 Act, 30 members, 20 MPs from the Lok Sabha, 10 MPs from the Rajya Sabha. The job of the committee is to review the progress made in use of Hindi for official purposes and to make recommendation to increase the use of Hindi in official communication. So this was about the prelims fact. But why it is in the news? The reason being is that according to the sources, which is in itself a bit contradictory, that probably they cannot be trusted or not, but the because this committee is largely dominated by the BJP members. For North India, they are trying to impose the Hindi in various institutions, including IIT and central government institutions, where they say that we have to make the Hindi language more efficient. And even as per the southern state, even the NEP 2020s follows the promotion of Hindi and Sanskrit as a language, so which can impose or which can open new issues or new problems in the overall social milieu, because South Indian state and the over imposition, see, the society in which we are moving, the globalized society, and their English has emerged as a link language, or it has been developing, and that is the force needed for overall the well-being of the demographic dividend. So imposing Hindi in one way or other can be problematic. One, two, that it is still in the developing stage. Once the recommendation will be open, then the discussion can be continued on this part. Now, there is this two part where we can think about. Yes, one must take sides in the matter of human right. This is the essay topic, and neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. This is the quote. Both these quotes are related with our Vice President, who said this in case of the human rights. So one must take sides in the matter of human rights. Now this is very interesting, because after the Second World War, when there was the issue of that what could have German soldiers as low ranking soldiers could have done, because it was directly the orders from the above. So that was an issue. So in this case, Namibia Conference, when the judgment was going on, so there was the issue which was said that in case of human rights or in case of human conscience, you may discard the orders. And this is the defense gave the argument of orders or order, and that was translated. It is a very famous Befehl ist Befehls, which is a German word. Orders are orders, and a low ranking officer has to abide by the order. So this was the part that in case of any order which violates the human conscience, the order can be dispensed away with, and you may be open to follow you may or may not follow the order, and if you are following it, if it is against the human conscience, then it is open to punishment. And that's why a significant number of the German soldiers were punished. They were not treated as the war criminals. So one must take sides in the matter of human rights, because by the virtue of being human, we have to take sides. And there are so many things. If we are not taking any sides, then there are chances that probably some can or maybe we can be the next victim. But the issue is to define human right. If we are going to analyze this topic, then see, the perspective and the matters of human right varies from country to country and location to location. So in this case, if we are taking the human right solutions, say for example in case of Naxalism, yes, there are rule of the laws which has to be followed. But if you are not following the rule of the law, then there are chances then anarchy can prevail. So isn't it the responsibility of the state, of a sovereign state, of a democratic sovereign state, that way should be, the state mandate should be abided by. So this is the line of antithesis you can present, but by various examples you have to show that one must take sides in the matter of human right. Probably you can go on into the analyzing constitutional morality versus social morality. See for example, if social morality is a bit regressive in nature, in this case, as constitutional morality is based on the notion of human rights and human dignity, then we have to repress such personal laws or the part of the social morality. Okay, but again, as the same thing goes, that there are laws, there are some places where the laws is silent on what to do and what not to do. For example, the things that we have been witnessing nowadays, particularly related to surrogacy, and there was some problem with related with the surrogacy in CMLV countries, where there was contract that suppose there will be any problem with the new born child, say for example medical problems, then we won't take the child. So there was this case, very famous case, that an Australian couple opted for a surrogate mother in Thailand, and the child was born with autistic syndrome. So they rejected, they just, they gave the money for the surrogacy cost and such other, but they never took the delivery of the child, they never went for, they never took the child. So you see that there was an international uproar, and nearly every citizen based on social media supported the Thai couple, and public funding was done so that this child can be given a good future. But this is that in this case social morality is helping. So sometimes when the laws are silent, social morality, because it is based on the principles of the compassion and such other issues, it really helps. So this was the part about that how you will approach the essay. Now, neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. So the moment we read it, the whole principles of non-alignment comes in question, that it helps the oppressor. And our largely the principles of foreign policy was neutrality. So somehow it is creating a paradox, and how we are supposed to answer this question depends upon that how many perspective you will develop in this case. So neutrality, what is the meaning of neutrality and what is the meaning of oppressor? See, we generally say that one man heroes can be other people's terrorist, or one man's terrorist can be other people's hero. So this part, the operation part is not clear. So what is clear, that they are universally laid premise and principles based on which the notion of oppressor can be justified. And in such cases, when you are going to be neutral, then it will help in creating a mass which will not be able to differentiate between what is right and what is just or what is wrong. So probably saying that, there was this quote by St. Augustine, and he is considered as a very famous philosopher. St. Augustine also influenced the Gandhian thinking. Okay, and so there was this quote that if you are more right than your neighbor, then you already consist the majority of one. I will repeat that again. If you think that you are more right than your neighbor, then you already consist the majority of one. Okay, so using this quote, because Hitler went on to create an army which ultimately resulted in Holocaust. So again, even in such cases, if one will remain neutral, then naturally there will be problem, and this problem can further exacerbate, and maybe there are chances that somebody who is not taking sides or being neutral in such cases will be at the stranded sand or at the problematic end. So in such cases, see, basically the thing is that in any of the ACs we have to balance the answers. So if we consider the today's scenario where India has abstained from many of the votings on the overall Ukrainian crisis, so that can tantamount to neutrality. But again, we have to justify it by our hands, which is that why the war in Ukraine can be thought as a Western construct, or there are some issues which is not clear. So in such cases, it is always better to remain neutral. For example, India allying with the OIC nation in case of China right now on the issues of the Ugly Muslims in Xinjiang province. So in this case, where to be neutral is also an important part that you will be rating in this essay. Okay. With that, we'll conclude our session. We will resume the session tomorrow again. Thank you. Good morning.